I would like to yield to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. DeSantis.
Well, I thank my colleague from Virginia for organizing this, really a fitting tribute to somebody who really did make a difference, and very few people who serve not only in the judiciary but really at any level of government leave the lasting mark that Antonin Scalia did. And he will join the likes of John Marshall, Joseph Story, Robert Jackson as one of the all-time greats in American law. And I think that of all the great things you can say about him, I mean, he was sharp, he was witty, he wrote brilliantly. I think the reason why he is a titan of modern American law is because he insisted on discharging the judicial duty in a way that strengthened our overall constitutional order. He insisted on textualism when you are interpreting statutes. He had an originalist outlook when you're talking about the constitutional interpretation, and those frames of reference really vindicated the separation of powers. I mean, the judicial power under Article 3 is to decide cases and controversies. So you have cases before you, and you got to decide them. It's not to go out and be a roving super legislature. It's not to put your philosophy and impose that on society. You decide cases. And so once judges free their decision-making from the objective meaning of the law and the Constitution, they are taking away power belonging to the American people and that should be exercised through their representatives. And Justice Scalia always understood that, and he was always insistent that judges have an objective standard when they're discharging their duty. So when you talk about textualism, you read the statute for what it says. You don't correct the statute. You don't amend the statute. You don't find subjective views of some random legislature who happened to say something in a committee hearing. You actually apply words as written, and that is the judicial task. And when you do that, you're basically vindicating the power of the Congress and of the people's elected representatives, because they're the ones that wrote the law. And if the courts depart from that, then they're departing what the elected representatives did. And I'm sure he saw countless statutes that were asinine as a matter of policy, but he said, that's not my job to correct that. And so he is absolutely vindicating the separation of powers in the constitutional order. And the same thing with constitutional interpretation. You know, before Scalia took the bench, I mean, this was a freewheeling thing. I mean, judges would say, oh, you know, society matures and it's up to us to effectively update the meaning of the Constitution. That means you have 5 lawyers, unelected, unaccountable, that serve as an effective roving constitutional convention that can change the Constitution based on one case that happens to come in front of them. And that was something that Justice Scalia thought was totally outside the bounds of the proper judicial role. And so he says the Constitution has a fixed, enduring meaning, and it's our job as judges to ascertain that meaning and apply it to the cases and controversies before us. And so if you look at a figure that has had more impact on how we think about the law and the Constitution over the last 50 years, you are not going to find one that surpasses Justice Antonin Scalia. He was a great American in every respect. He fought the good fight. He finished the race. He kept the faith. What a good guy. What a